You won't believe what just happened in the Love and Marriage Huntsville world. Melody Cherie, the heart and soul of the show, walked away. And let's be real, no one saw this coming. Fans were left shocked, confused, and wondering what really went down behind the scenes. How could someone who carried the show season after season suddenly decide to leave? But here's the shocking part. Her exit wasn't as simple as it seemed. There were whispers, hidden agendas, and moves being made that no one expected. Some say she left on her own. Others believe she was pushed out. And if that's true, then the biggest question is, who was behind it? From the very start, Melody wasn't just another reality star. She was strong, independent, and fearless. People connected with her because she was real. No matter how much drama surrounded her, she never backed down. She built businesses, raised her kids, and stood up for herself, even when it felt like the whole world was against her. And let's be honest, a huge part of that pressure came from her ex-husband, Martell Holt. Their marriage had already been a mess before the show, but when cameras got involved, it turned into a whole new level of toxic. The fights, the betrayal, the mind games, it was all playing out in front of millions of viewers. Even after their divorce, Martell just couldn't let go. It was like he needed Melody to be part of his storyline, and without her, he had nothing. But the craziest part, the show seemed to encourage the drama. The producers knew that as long as Martell kept coming for Melody, fans would keep watching. And that's exactly what happened. Let me tell you, Melody tried to stay strong. She focused on her businesses, her music, and most importantly, her kids. But there was always something or someone trying to pull her back into the mess. Every time she tried to move on, Martell found a way to stir things up again, whether it was questioning her as a mother, spreading rumors, or turning other cast members against her. He did not stop. And it wasn't just him. Some of the other cast members started picking sides, and guess what? A lot of them weren't on Melody's. The alliances on the show were shifting, and suddenly it felt like Melody was standing alone. But here's where it gets interesting. Was this just drama between castmates, or was something bigger going on? Because when you really look at the pattern, it starts to seem like Melody was being pushed out. For months, fans noticed a change in her energy. She went from being deeply involved in the show to looking completely checked out. At first, people thought she was just tired of the same old drama. But looking back, the signs were clear. She was getting fed up. The constant backstabbing, negativity, and betrayal were wearing her down. And then came the whispers. Some insiders started talking about behind-the-scenes manipulation. It was rumored that the producers were setting Melody up in situations that would make her look bad. Was she being forced into conflicts just to keep the show interesting? Was she being isolated on purpose? And if so, who was really pulling the strings? Because let's be real, Love and Marriage, Huntsville thrived on Melody's story. She was the one who brought the real, raw moments that kept people watching. But this is how things get even crazier. What if the show didn't want her to leave? What if they wanted her to break? This wasn't just about reality TV drama anymore. This was a power play. Melody had built a name for herself outside the show, and maybe, just maybe, that became a problem. Some reality stars need the show to stay relevant, but Melody didn't. She had a fan base, a brand, and a future with or without the cameras. And that's where things get messy. Because when a reality star starts outgrowing the show, they become a threat. Producers don't like to lose control, and some believe that Melody was starting to have too much power. Was her growing influence the reason she was suddenly being pushed to the side? And the craziest part, there were rumors that certain cast members were in on it. Now, here's where it gets even messier. Just when everyone thought Melody had simply walked away, a huge leak turned everything upside down. A private conversation suggested that Melody didn't leave on her own. She was forced out. But by who? the producers, the network, or someone even closer? Because if this leak is real, then everything we thought we knew about her exit was a lie. And let's not forget, Martell was still there. While Melody was slowly being pushed out, he was being given more and more space to rewrite the story. Was this part of his plan all along? Did he finally get what he wanted? Or was this just the beginning of something even bigger? But here is the shocking part. Melody's exit didn't just shake up the show. It shattered the entire foundation of Love and Marriage, Huntsville. The second she walked away, everything changed. The power balance among the cast shifted, and suddenly, the people who used to stand in her shadow saw an opportunity. Martell, for one, acted like he wasn't bothered, but anyone who knew him knew better. His entire presence on the show revolved around Melody, their marriage, their divorce, their constant back and forth. Without her, what did he even have left? And let's be real, when someone like Martell loses control, he doesn't take it well. It didn't take long for his mask to slip. At first, he played it cool, acting like Melody's departure was no big deal. But the way he kept bringing her up, even after she was gone, said everything. He tried to act unbothered, but the truth, he was scrambling. Without Melody, his storyline was falling apart. He had built his entire identity on being her ex-husband, the man who had wronged her, the man who was still in her life, whether she liked it or not. But now, she was gone, and with her, his relevance was slipping. And this is where it gets interesting. With Melody out of the picture, the producers had a massive problem on their hands. She wasn't just a cast member, she was the main attraction. Fans connected with her because her struggles were real. She wasn't just bringing drama for the sake of TV, she was living it. People rooted for her, cried with her, cheered her on. So now that she was gone, what was left? The producers had spent years crafting a show that revolved around her, and now they had to figure out how to move forward without their biggest star. But let me tell you, the show didn't just lose Melody. They lost the one person who kept things real. And fans noticed. Social media exploded with reactions. People were furious, demanding answers. Some claimed they wouldn't watch the show anymore. Others called out the network for letting her go. And the biggest debate, did Melody really leave on her own, or was she pushed out? This is where things take a wild turn. A leaked chat suggested that Melody didn't just walk away, she was forced out. And if that's true, the next question is why? What was happening behind the scenes that made her feel like she had no choice but to leave? Was it the constant negativity, the betrayal, or was there something much bigger going on? Because the craziest part, some people believe that certain cast members were in on it. For months, Melody had been feeling more and more isolated. The alliances were shifting, and suddenly it seemed like she had fewer people in her corner. Some of the people she thought she could trust, they were turning against her. And let's not forget the producers. There were whispers that they were pushing storylines that made Melody look bad, setting her up for conflicts that weren't even real. The more you look at it, the more it seems like someone was trying to push her out. But why? Why would the show risk losing its biggest star? That's the part that doesn't make sense unless Melody had become a problem. Not in the way the show made it seem, but in a way that made the network nervous. Because let's face it, she wasn't just a reality star anymore. She was building something bigger than the show. Her brand, her businesses, her music. She was becoming too powerful to control. And when a reality star outgrows the show, things tend to get messy. And now with Melody gone, the show was left scrambling. Some cast members, like Kimmy and Letitia, saw this as their moment to shine. But could they really fill Melody's shoes? And more importantly, did fans even want them to? Because let's be real, Love and Marriage, Huntsville wasn't just about the drama. It was about Melody's journey, her resilience, her ability to rise above. Without that, what was left? Now, here's the biggest question. Was this the plan all along? Was someone behind the scenes waiting for the perfect moment to push Melody out? And if so, who benefited the most from her exit? Because while some people celebrated her departure, others felt the impact immediately. And let's just say things were about to get even messier. But here's where it gets really crazy. The more people looked into Melody's exit, the more it seemed like she wasn't the one pulling the strings. Sure, she had talked about leaving before, and fans had noticed her energy shift. But the way it happened, it didn't feel like a simple decision. It felt like a power move. And guess who was right at the center of it all? Martell. You won't believe what happened next. As soon as Melody was out, Martell wasted no time making moves. He started appearing more, speaking out more, and trying hard to control the narrative. He wanted to rewrite history and make it look like he had nothing to do with her leaving. But fans weren't buying it because the timing, it was way too suspicious. Let's not forget, Martell had spent years trying to bring Melody down. He tried to control her during their marriage, and when that failed, he tried to control her through public drama, court battles, and endless conflicts on the show. Every season, he found a new way to keep her trapped in his mess. And when she finally broke free, when she was about to take back her power, she was gone. And here's the part that nobody saw coming. Not only was Melody forced out, it looked like Martell had been setting this up for a while. Think about it. Melody had been talking about protecting her peace, distancing herself from negativity, and focusing on her businesses. But at the same time, Martell was still trying to make her life hell. He dragged her into court, publicly embarrassed her, and constantly threw low blows whenever he could. It was clear he didn't want to see her win, at least not without him. So when the leaked chats suggested that producers were involved in her exit, fans immediately connected the dots. Was Martell working behind the scenes to turn people against her? Was he making sure she had nowhere left to go so that when she finally left, it looked like her own choice? Because the craziest part, if Melody's departure was planned, he wasn't the only one who benefited. Some of her castmates suddenly had a lot more screen time. For years, Melody had been the center of the show. Whether people loved her or hated her, they couldn't ignore her. But with her gone, other cast members saw an opportunity. Some of them had always played background roles, letting Melody carry the drama. But now, they were stepping up, trying to take her place. Letitia, for example, had always had a love-hate dynamic with Melody. They were friends at one point, but their relationship had turned messy over the years, and now that Melody was gone, Letitia was suddenly everywhere. More screen time, more involvement in major storylines, almost like the show was trying to push her as the new main star. And Kimmy, she had always been more neutral, but even she couldn't ignore what was happening. She knew the show was changing, and fast. But here's where it gets even darker. If Martell really was involved in pushing Melody out, what was his endgame? Did he think that without her, he could take over the show? Did he believe fans would suddenly forget everything and embrace his version of events? If that was the case, he seriously underestimated the audience. Because once Melody was gone, something happened that Martell didn't expect. Fans turned on him fast. People who had once defended him started calling him out. They questioned his role in all of this, and they weren't afraid to drag him for filth. Because let's be honest, his entire identity on the show had been built around fighting with Melody. Without her, what did he even have to offer? And that's when the desperation started to show. Martell began making more public appearances, doing more interviews, and throwing more jabs at Melody, even though she wasn't even on the show anymore. It was obvious that he was trying to keep her name attached to his, because deep down, he knew the truth. Without Melody, his days on the show might be numbered. And here's where destiny took an unexpected turn. The more Martell tried to control the situation, the more it backfired. He thought he had won, but in reality, he had just lost the biggest reason people were still watching the show. And with that, Love and Marriage, Huntsville was spiraling into chaos. But here's the shocking part. Just when everyone thought the dust was settling, a bombshell leaked that changed everything. At first, fans thought Melody's exit was just another reality TV shakeup, cast members come and go all the time, right? But this was different because the more people dug into the situation, the more it started to look like she didn't leave on her own. Let's talk about what really went down behind the scenes. Remember those leaked messages? The ones that suggested producers were involved in pushing Melody out. Well, it turns out there was more to the story than anyone realized. These weren't just rumors, this was calculated. Sources close to production claimed that Melody had been isolated for months. Cast members were turning on her. She wasn't getting the same support from producers, and the editing, let's just say it was making her look a certain way. You won't believe what happened next. Behind closed doors, Melody was allegedly pressured to play along with certain storylines, ones that made her look bad and kept the drama going. When she refused, that's when things got ugly. Suddenly, she wasn't being included in key decisions. Conversations were happening without her. She was being pushed out little by little. And guess who benefited the most? That's right, Martell. See, Martell had built his entire reality TV career off his connection to Melody. Their marriage, their divorce, their constant back and forth, it was his only real storyline. But what if Melody had left on her own terms? What if she had taken control of her narrative, stepped away from the drama, and started fresh? That would have been a disaster for Martell, because without Melody, he had nothing. So here's where it gets really twisted. Insiders claim that Martell wasn't just an innocent bystander in all of this. He might have played a direct role in pushing Melody out. Think about it. He had spent years trying to control her, first in their marriage, then through public humiliation. And when none of that worked, he allegedly took it a step further, turning people against her behind the scenes. And if you think this is just speculation, look at how he reacted after she left. Instead of moving on, he couldn't stop talking about her. In interviews, on social media, even on the show, he kept Melody's name in his mouth. He acted like he wasn't bothered, but fans saw right through it. Because if he was so unbothered, why did he keep bringing her up? And this is where the story takes an even crazier turn. Not only was Melody allegedly forced out, but the people behind it may have seriously miscalculated. They thought removing Melody would shift the power dynamics. They thought other cast members would step up and carry the show. But what they didn't realize was this. Without Melody, the entire show was falling apart. Fans weren't tuning in the same way. The drama felt forced. Martell, who thought he could take center stage, suddenly looked desperate. Letitia and Kimmy, who had been pushed into bigger roles, weren't getting the same audience reaction. And ratings, let's just say they weren't looking great. Because here's the thing, you can't replace authenticity. Melody wasn't just another reality TV star. She was the heart of the show. Love her or hate her, she was the reason people watched. And when she was gone, everything changed